The forgotten Siege of La Rochelle in 1627 to 1628 was not only a defining moment in French history, but also one of the most dramatic and symbolic struggles of the early 17th century, a battle where faith, politics, and human endurance collided with devastating consequences. La Rochelle, located on the western coast of France, was far more than a prosperous maritime city. It was a fortress of Huguenot identity, a republic within a kingdom, defended by massive walls, a powerful fleet, and a population deeply committed to the Protestant cause. For decades, it had been a thorn in the side of Catholic monarchs, maintaining a degree of autonomy, wealth, and influence that challenged the centralized ambitions of the French crown. To Cardinal Richelieu, the formidable chief minister of Louis XIII, La Rochelle represented an intolerable obstacle. Its independence undermined royal authority, and its religious defiance stood in stark contrast to his vision of a unified, Catholic, and absolute monarchy. Crushing La Rochelle was not just a matter of military conquest, it was a matter of national destiny. The struggle was complicated by the involvement of England, where Charles I, under pressure from his Protestant subjects and eager to assert his prestige, launched an expedition to support the Huguenots. Yet the English intervention was plagued by poor planning, inadequate leadership, and logistical chaos. The expedition led by the Duke of Buckingham failed to establish a decisive foothold, and instead of rescuing the city, it only highlighted England's weakness on the European stage. The geopolitical stakes were enormous, as the conflict was tied not only to the French wars of religion, but also to the wider struggle between Catholic and Protestant powers during the turbulent years of the 30 Years' War. The anatomy of the blockade that followed was extraordinary in scale and ambition. Determined to strangle La Rochelle into submission, Richelieu masterminded one of the most audacious engineering projects of the age. A massive seawall, or dike, stretching across the harbor. Constructed with stone, timber, and sunken ships, it was a colossal feat, designed to close off all access to the sea and prevent any English ships from breaking through. In essence, it transformed La Rochelle into an island prison, cut off from the world. At the same time, the French fleet patrolled the waters, reinforcing the blockade, while tens of thousands of soldiers encircled the landward side. For the besiegers, maintaining such a vast operation was a logistical nightmare. Supplies had to be transported over long distances, disease and hunger also threatened their ranks, and morale often faltered. Yet Richelieu's iron determination, his presence at the front, and his meticulous organization ensured that the siege continued without wavering. Inside La Rochelle, the situation grew steadily worse. At first, the citizens responded with courage, rationing supplies, organizing defenses, and hoping desperately for relief. But as the blockade tightened, food supplies dwindled, and despair set in. Disease spread through the population, malnutrition weakened even the strongest, and hunger reduced people to eating horses, dogs, cats, leather, and even grass. Contemporary accounts describe scenes of unimaginable suffering, with families torn apart by starvation and once proud citizens reduced to skeletal shadows. The city, which had once been a symbol of Huguenot resilience and wealth, became a vision of horror. Yet amid the despair, there were also stories of extraordinary resilience and solidarity, as well as betrayal and suspicion, as survival drove people to desperate choices. Beyond the city walls, Louis XIII himself maintained a constant presence, reinforcing the siege's symbolic weight and ensuring that the outcome would be remembered as a personal victory for the crown. The winter of 1627 to 28 was brutal. Freezing temperatures and storms tested both sides, but for the besieged, it was an additional blow in a struggle already beyond endurance. Hopes of salvation rested on England's repeated attempts to resupply the city, but every expedition ended in failure. French defenses proved too strong, and the engineering brilliance of Richelieu's dike ensured that no ship could slip through. Each failed relief attempt shattered the city's spirit further, until at last the inhabitants could resist no longer. By the time La Rochelle capitulated in October 1628, its population had been reduced from nearly 30,000 to scarcely 5,000 survivors, a staggering testament to the siege's cruelty. The surrender terms were harsh, stripping the city of its political independence and demolishing its military defenses, though the citizens were allowed to continue their Protestant worship. The fall of La Rochelle was more than just the end of a siege. It was a turning point in French history. It marked the definitive collapse of Huguenot political and military power, integrating them firmly under the authority of the crown, and it signaled the triumph of centralized monarchy over local autonomy. For Richelieu, the victory cemented his reputation as one of the most brilliant and ruthless statesmen of the age, a master strategist who combined military innovation with political vision. For Louis XIII, it enhanced royal prestige and demonstrated that the monarchy could impose its will upon even the most defiant of subjects. The echoes of La Rochelle resounded across Europe, where it was seen as part of the wider struggle between Catholic and Protestant powers during the turbulent years of the 30 Years' War. Yet the story of the siege is also one of human endurance, suffering, and sacrifice. It illustrates the extremes of strategic brilliance and cruelty, the terrible costs of sectarian conflict, and the long-term consequences of political ambition. Even today, the memory of La Rochelle speaks to timeless themes: the struggle between freedom and authority, faith and power, and the price that ordinary people pay when caught in the crossfire of history.